Hi guys, so Lord Sainsbury was invited on to LBC to talk about the current worker shortage, which is being dealt with somewhat by wage increases. Now this has been the way of resolving the problem by both large companies like the one his family has part ownership of and large logistics firms. Sainsbury's was offering £1,600 to some drivers willing to work for them. However, Lord Sainsbury said that this is not a sustainable model, and I do tend to agree with him on that. Let's hear what he had to say when he was interviewed by Tom Swarbrick on Sunday.
Some sectors of the economy, the free movement of people has kept wages down because that labour has been considerably cheaper than the British labour might have been.
Now, the argument with this is that we're only looking at workers at the bottom end of the market. And of course, freedom of movement ended for also high-paid staff. But also there's this idea that workers coming across from Europe are stealing British jobs. And this was, of course, a useful tool by the right to convince people to vote for Brexit. Now, there's very little evidence to support that because workers coming across work in the economy expands, there are more opportunities also for British workers, and wages actually increase. Now, it's not that the wages are decreasing. In some sectors, yes, but generally as the economy grows, it creates more opportunities for people and there are more opportunities to earn more money.
The evidence of this seems very unclear. I think one would assume that it did, but it's not clear that that is actually the case.
Do you think then that the changes that have been made post-Brexit to say, as the government does, that they're not going to reach for the lever marked uncontrolled immigration to fill those vacancies is therefore the right one?
I think there's a distinction here between short-term and long-term. Short-term, there is no way that we're going to fill the jobs simply by wage inflation. And that's a very dangerous policy. We've got at the moment, inflation has risen to 3% very quickly and looks like going to 5%. And actually wage inflation will simply drive up overall inflation. And I don't think it will solve the job problem.
No, it won't solve the job problem because what's happening at the moment is companies like Sainsbury or large logistics firms who have deep pockets are hiring workers who are already working. They're hiring heavy goods vehicle drivers who are normally driving bin lorries or other lorries. And what you're doing is you're not creating new jobs. You're just shifting workers from one sector to another. It's not solving the problem. You're just moving the problem around. And of course, if companies are paying higher wages, then this has to be paid for in some way, and it's going to be paid for by the customer. And in the case of a supermarket chain, the customer is you and I. And of course, there are many people who are on fixed incomes, many people on universal credit, who can't absorb an extra cost. They can't absorb the inflation that's running at the moment. And they're going to be driven further and further into poverty.
So short term, I think we've got to try and get back some of the million people that have left and have left a shortage in key areas. So I think short term, we should be giving more visas, and that's not uncontrolled immigration. And we need to have a massive training exercise as well, because, as I say, just allowing wages to go up will just push up inflation and won't solve the problem.
It's not just a case of training. I think there needs to be a new approach to working. Working standards need to be increased. A number of commentators have compared the facilities available to heavy goods vehicle drivers in Britain to those on the continent. And there are shower facilities, sleeping facilities. There are much better services in Europe than there are in Britain. And it's not just a case of training up more drivers. You need to actually provide better working conditions. And of course, better working conditions, better support for workers, better rights for workers is not part of Brexit. Brexit was about deregulation, about stripping away protections. So the Brexiteer solution to this is, well, we need to hire more workers, we need to pay them more, but we're not going to actually invite them to work in the industry because we want to reduce protections for them. So they want to give and take at the same time. I don't know how this is going to be resolved. In the short term, it seems to be the government want to issue a number of visas, but that's not going to be sufficient because many people are going to say, what's the point in going to Britain for 3 months and then to be kicked out just before Christmas or just after Christmas and be treated like trash once again? And also many of the workers in the European Union are deciding to stay in the European Union. It's not worth it going over for a few months, even if the money is better. Now, we've seen how Boris Johnson himself said, yes, there was 127 workers who applied for the 5,000 visas, when in reality it wasn't 127, it was 27, an absolute failure. But the government aren't looking at the failure and saying, okay, we need to turn the ship around, we need to go in a different direction. No, they're doubling down. The next solution they've provided is longer visas, but visas are not the solution. The solution is to return to freedom of movement. But of course, that's not going to happen. Even if the government wanted to, it's not going to happen in the short term. So what is the solution? I don't know. And the government don't know either, it seems. Instead of actually trying to understand reality, work with industry. If industry say, look, this is something that could help us. For example, adding workers, heavy goods vehicle drivers to the shortage occupation list. That helps at least hire some people from abroad. But in the long term, you do need to train up more drivers, but fundamentally, you need to make the environment better for workers. Otherwise, you'll have people jump on board the sector and then jump off as soon as they realize how crappy it is. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. But one thing also is, this is a consequence of Brexit. Not just the shortage of drivers, but the conditions that are being pushed at the moment. Because they want to, as I said before, to reduce standards, to reduce protections. And it's not just heavy goods vehicle drivers, it's across numerous sectors. And it's going to get much worse, it seems, before it gets any better. Once again, let me know in the comments. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?